Don't you dare cook with those dirty hands. Upon seeing the grime on my hands from my factory job that just wouldn't wash off, my son Jack labeled it as dirty. I prepared the meals with oversized plastic gloves on, but they were so slippery I accidentally cut my finger. I had always intended to work tirelessly for my children. However, my eldest son Jack was ashamed of me. My name is Emily. After getting divorced in my 30s, I leveraged my hairdressing qualifications and juggled part-time jobs at a barbershop and a factory to raise my 2 sons. I'm 55 years old now. The cause of the divorce was my ex-husband's terrible drinking habits. Despite his high education and income, he became violent when drunk, leaving me in constant fear that he might harm our young sons. So, I made the bold decision to leave home with my 2 boys. Dirty hands, huh? Could dirty hands you at least take care of them? My eldest son Jack has a penchant for cleanliness and is a bit of a germaphobe. He's good at studies and graduated from a pretty well-known university. I washed them too much, they get chapped. I don't have the time to care for them, I said. Jack glanced at me as I said this and, with a huff of contempt, left the room. Mom works hard with her hands at the barbershop and at the factory. You deal with machine oil. My younger son Sam disliked studying, but he learned programming on his own. Due to his weak physique, he works as a home-based engineer. We have managed to live close together in a small apartment, but now Jack has decided to become independent. He wanted to live alone right after graduating, but I was barely able to afford his tuition, let alone support his independence. Are you kidding me? Working from dawn till dusk, and this is all you've got? Are you secretly using the money you earn for yourself? He'd say this bluntly to me, wearing fraying sweatshirts, worn-out jeans, and sneakers with worn-out heels. My eldest son Jack often came at me harshly. Maybe we just didn't get along. My alcoholic ex-husband was fond of Jack when he wasn't drinking, so maybe Jack resented me for pulling them apart. I've worried a lot about whether my not being able to be by his side much during his sensitive years, being a single parent and working all the time, also affected him. In the end, Jack commuted from home for a while after graduating from the university. When he found out I had managed to set aside some money, he said, "Having parents who don't know how to make money efficiently is a struggle." He then quickly took the money I offered and left without even telling me where he was moving to. Ever since Jack found out that his father, whom I had separated from, had a high education and high income, he criticized me for separating from my husband, saying, even if he was just a bit of a drunk, if I had stayed with the one who had a lot of money, I might have had better treatment. Despite being such a tough character, the independence of my firstborn, for whom I had suffered, was both joyful and lonely. I shed some tears and went to sleep that day. Even after that, whenever he was short on money, he would come home, take the money I had earned and saved, and although my younger son Sam tried to stop him physically, he would end up losing to his physical strength and letting him take it, making it hard for me to save money for my old age. One day, I got a message from Jack saying he was getting married. "I've arranged for a meeting with the family. Make sure you don't embarrass me. Make sure your clothes in here are in order before you come," he warned me. But I was very happy. If he had someone important in his life, Jack might change. I thought he would naturally learn about love, something I couldn't teach him, from the woman who was to become his wife. However, there was no context for a while. I anxiously waited for the schedule for the meeting, but I also had work, so I went to my part-time job at the factory as usual. During work, my cell phone rang, and as I was waiting for a message from Jack, I stopped my hand and answered the call. The voice saying hello was Jack's. When I asked him about the date for the meet and greet with the in-laws, he said, "No, her parents are business people, likely have a keen eye for people. They're different from our family, so you don't have to come." Then, without waiting for my reply, he hung up the phone. That's when I realized how much happier I was about Jack's marriage than I thought. Ever since he left home, I was always worried about whether he was doing well or if he had caught a cold. Knowing that he'd have someone by his side when he got married was truly comforting. "I wanted to meet the woman who loves my firstborn son, to ask her to take care of him," I said. But I was disappointed when he said not to come. My younger son Sam heard this and said, "What the heck? I just got a new suit for nothing, man. New suit." Jack is so selfish. But a few days later, as I was about to head home after work, my phone starts ringing. It was Jack, so I answered, and he said, "Her parents insist on meeting you. Come over now. Don't keep them waiting." Suddenly, I was in a rush. Should I risk being disrespectful by showing up in my dirty work clothes, or would it be more disrespectful to keep them waiting while I change? I knew I'd be quite late if I went home to freshen up, so I reluctantly decided to go. As I was on the way, I bought some drugstore makeup, did a quick touch-up, dusted off my clothes, and headed for the meet and greet at the restaurant. It turned out to be a high-end restaurant, and I felt intimidated. But there was nothing I could do at this point. I mustered up my courage, approached the table, and stammered, I'm sorry for keeping you waiting. I'm Jack's mother, Emily. Thank you for this opportunity." When the in-laws and Jack's fiancé stood up to greet me, they began to guide me to my seat, but Jack interrupted. "My mom has all sorts of allergies, so she can't eat at unfamiliar places. Today is really just for greetings." I don't have any allergies, but playing along and bowing apologetically, I practically let Jack chase me out of the restaurant. I'm sure he must have thought my attire was disgraceful. I wanted to talk a bit more with his fiancée, but I had no choice but to return home disappointed. Sure enough, Jack called me the next day. "Why did you show up looking like that? That was embarrassing. Don't you know what a dress code is?" He scolded me harshly. Sam, who was listening to the conversation, snatched my phone and defended me. "Mom was ready with a nice dress, and you're the one who told her she didn't. I still have Sam when Sam gets married." Married. I want to be able to contribute whatever money I can, so I need to keep working hard. One day, about 2 weeks before the wedding, Jack contacted me again. I had thought our relationship was nearly severed since he said I didn't need to come to the wedding. Yet at this stage, he was still pushing more unreasonable demands onto me. "Weddings cost money? You know that, right?" "I know, but I don't have any more money to give you. Besides, if it's money for a wedding, shouldn't you have saved some yourself since you're working?" I replied, and he seemed annoyed, probably because I hit a nerve. "Are you saying you can't even afford to pay for your child's wedding? There must be some way. I'll borrow it from somewhere." He wasn't listening. I gave in and said, "Fine, I'll arrange for it. Come by the house again to collect it." After that, Jack finally seemed satisfied and hung up. A few days later, Jack came to collect the borrowed money. He took it with a smug smile, said nothing, and left. I felt a huge responsibility for having taken on so much debt, even if it was for my child. Jack's wedding wasn't the only thing on my mind. I thought if something happened to me, this debt might be passed on to Sam. I knew I needed to work hard to repay it as soon as possible. Then one day, a man who said he was a customer came to the factory where I worked. I was called by a coworker to the office, and there a surprising person was waiting for me. Days passed, and the day of Jack's wedding arrived. I had been told not to come, so I had no intention of going, but I worked as usual, praying for my son's happiness in my heart. Then I was called from the office. Jack was on the phone, seemingly in the middle of the wedding. I picked up the phone and asked what was going on, and in a panicked tone he said, "Mom, come to the wedding now." I was surprised and asked, what on earth happened? He just said to hurry up and bring Sam too, so I quickly got ready and headed to the wedding venue. When I arrived at the venue, a staff member was waiting, and I was quickly escorted to the hall. When I opened the door that was pointed out to me, I was suddenly in the spotlight and couldn't make out my surroundings. Then the father of Jack's bride announced, "This is Jack's mother. Please welcome her with applause." I became the center of attention, feeling both embarrassed and happy. While bowing to the people around me, I took my seat as guided, looking halfway up the stage. I could see Jack, my older son, with his arms crossed, looking away, dressed in a new suit. It appeared as if he was embarrassed or possibly angered by his mother being introduced in front of so many people. Then there was my younger son Sam beside him, saying, "Don't mind Jack, let's have fun. We've been invited by the bride's father himself, that's right." The man who had come to visit the factory before the wedding was the father of Jack's bride. When the bride's father had asked Jack why his mother wouldn't be attending the wedding, Jack had been vague in his reply, so the bride's father had taken the trouble to visit the factory. Even Jack couldn't defy the bride's father. Meanwhile, Sam was starting to dig into the feast before him, exclaiming how delicious they all looked. Thanks to Sam's cheerful and kind demeanor, I could truly appreciate the joy of witnessing my son's special moment in such a grand setting. After that, the wedding reception progressed in a friendly manner, reaching its climax and ending without a hitch. When we finally left the venue, I felt relieved as I managed to convey my blessings to both Jack and his bride. Taking a breather, I went to express my gratitude for the day to the bride's parents. As I peered into the family waiting room, that's when it happened. "Don't get too comfortable. You're only here because your father-in-law felt sorry for you," I heard someone say. Turning around, I saw Jack, who continued, "This isn't a place for a factory worker who's down on her luck." Suddenly, behind Jack, the bride's father, who had been absent until now, said, "Jack, are you still talking to your mother like that?" Caught off guard, Jack turned around, making a surprised face before freezing in place. "Do you understand how much financial hardship you cause your mother? It's not just tuition fees, but moving costs when you left home, wedding expenses, and even the money you've taken from your mother to supplement your irresponsible lifestyle," the father of the bride addressed Jack. Jack couldn't respond to this. He just looked down, biting his lip. Then Sam, who was beside me, chimed in. "You had Mom take out a payday loan for the wedding expenses, didn't you? $10 million wouldn't have been enough, right, Jack?" "No offense, but I did a little research about you," the bride's father said as he received a small paper bag from his wife standing nearby, then offered it to me. I accepted it, not knowing what was inside. "I am returning this large sum of money we received from you for the wedding to your mother. And in return, I want you to work at our daycare center and pay the wedding expenses from your salary," he told Jack. "Take it back." Jack lifted his face and looked up at his bride's father. The bride's father's business was a private daycare center, but when you say work, I don't have any qualifications to be a child care worker, and I've never worked with small children. "Do you mean helping with the business as a manager?" Jack asked, sounding uncertain. Then, with a calm look on his face, the bride's father said, "A manager? Absolutely not. The people who entrust their children to us are hardworking mothers who do it for their families." With a stern look, he continued, "A guy like you who doesn't understand the struggles of a mother and only causes trouble couldn't possibly manage a daycare center. So, first of all, as the bride Tyler was thinking..." Jack stared at him with a look of utmost concern. "What you need is cleaning the dirty toilet that children used and washing cloth diapers at our nursery," he said with laughter, unable to hide a shock. Jack's eyes widened, and he lowered his gaze, clenching both his fists tightly. Seeing Jack in such a state, at first, for me, I was taken aback. The mention of the daycare center jogs my memory. "Could your father is he Mr. Helen?" I questioned, an unexpected realization dawning upon me. The bride's father clapped his hands together, saying, "My dear, you finally caught on." It dawned upon me that the bride's father was the very same daycare teacher who looked after my kids back when I had just separated from my ex-husband. I also recognized his wife, who had been a daycare teacher